All right, There Will Be Bourbon returns for, I don't know, I think it's like episode 43 or something. So that's not really a testament to the audience, Sam. That's just a testament to me having nothing better to do on a Tuesday night. So here we are. All right. So but that I am talking to Sam Rogers, real Sam Rogers, if you want to follow him on Twitter. And tonight we are going to talk about this wonderful gentleman and a lot of the stuff he's done along the way in his military career, but what he does what he does now, which as I go over his bio, this is one of my favorite things. He works for something that's called the Concerned Vets for America in Wisconsin, and the primary mission is ending endless war. So that's a big thing you've probably heard me rant about forever. So we're going to definitely get into that at some point. But before we do that, Sam, how are you, sir?
I'm doing great, brother. Thanks for having me on. I appreciate
Absolutely. And as I cut you off so rudely, tonight I will be drinking the Woody Creek Distillers Wheated Bourbon from Colorado, aged 6 years. So something new, something I just thought I'd give a try to. Not bad. If anyone follows the bourbon market, they know that the wheated versions of bourbon are the big dogs at the moment and the ones most sought after, primarily because of Buffalo Trace and the Weller line. But, well, it's really Buffalo Trace and the Pappy line, and they've just figured out that Weller is nothing more than a younger version of it. As I listen to a cat try to break down the door and attack me. But anyway, you, Sam, have tried unsuccessfully for many moons to get me to try what you call a White Monster new fashion. Can you please tell the audience, the fledgling audience, what exactly that is?
Yeah, so I am also working on a Michter's sipper here, but so a new fashion is like a
opposite of old fashioned.
Yeah, it's like an old man Four Loko. So I take so in this case I'm rocking some a local brew, Central Standard Distillery from Milwaukee.
Okay.
It's not bad. It's good for a good mixer. So I put Luxardo cherries in it. I do some like craft orange bitters. Put some decent bourbon in there, and then I pour half a Monster on top of it, White Monster, which sounds like an abomination, and it is. But it's also just fantastic, and now I can't stop. So
he drinks bourbon with Luxardo cherries and White Monster.
Say that out loud. What can I say?
But then again, he is from Milwaukee, Wisconsin, and his taste in beverages is about as highly acceptable as his taste in NFL football teams.
So, oh my God!
He is a Packers fan, which says very
little.
I mean,
you have to be when you're born here. They make you move to lesser states to the south, like Illinois. You know?
I was waiting for it. Yeah. Right. Yeah, I mean, we'll always have the most Hall of Famers in the NFL. So as a Bears,
gotta have something.
Gotta have something, right? So that's where we pick this up and start. I want to go over Sam's bio real quick because if you haven't picked up yet, he does have a decent sense of humor. But he was born in the great state of Wisconsin. He is a Milwaukee, Wisconsin native. He joined the Army in 2005, and you were in for 8 years as an interrogator, human intelligence collector guy. Was that 35 Mike? Is that what that was?
Yeah, started out 97 Echo and then 35 Mike.
That's right. Okay. And you went to Afghanistan twice. Looks like you and I overlapped in 2013. So we'll try and get into that maybe, see where you were and see if we experienced the same dining facility fineness. And then, so you went to, what is SVA? Spell that for me.
Student Veterans of America.
Okay.
So that was while I was in college after I rage quit the Army and tried college out for about a year.
Okay. And then, so previous to that, you were a civilian contractor, intelligence officer, also in Afghanistan again. We overlapped again, but I wasn't in Afghanistan in 2015. So get your take on that, because that kind of, I think we've even discussed this on the Zooms, but yeah, I think this will be interesting. And so then you went on to start Concerned Vets for America in Wisconsin from 2019 to present. Primary mission, as I said previously, revolves around ending endless war. Big proponent of that. Love it.
Yeah.
VA reforms.
I didn't start it though.
Okay.
It's a national org.
Got it.
They created a position for me in Wisconsin, so they could hire me on after I graduated, and then I took the organization over shortly after.
Oh, cool. All right. So he didn't start it, but he is steering it nonetheless. And then also part of the primary mission is federal spending reform. Secondary missions revolve around veteran business, vets in CJR, which is
criminal justice reform.
Oh, got it. Good deal. And immigration reform. And then a tertiary, which for those of you who don't know what tertiary means, it means another effect, basically third effect. Third order effect, supporting veteran community nonprofits. That's big in the military planning process. You got to have primary, secondary, and tertiary effects. Good deal. All right. So anyway, that's where we are.
Anyway, you just go right to the Roshan and call back to the talk, man. You skip all those other ones.
Exactly. And hopefully my phone still works because I got a few of them I never turned in, but whatever. Nobody, I didn't sign for them. They just gave them to me. So, but anyway, so that's it. And then also, this is very big. This should be on everyone's bio. If you don't have it, he has 3 kids. He has 1 dog, and he is a proud Navy spouse. I thought you were going to say proud Navy wife. You didn't.
I didn't want to offend anybody, and it's very complicated these days. But I'm proud Navy wife is in my Twitter bio. I think still. I get a little bit. I probably get some hate mail about it. I don't know, every couple of weeks, somebody DMs me about it. But my wife, when she was at boot camp, she joined late.
Boot.
Boot. Yeah. She joined at 30. She was a middle school teacher when we met. Nice. And she had originally wanted to go to Annapolis out of high school, and her parents talked her out of it. And so she ends up with me every barbecue. It's all these crusty Army and Marine Corps Navy guys coming over, telling stories and stuff. And she was really starting to get to a couple times a week, she'd be like, I really wish I would have tried it. And, you've met some of the old timers who, they're like going on 80 and they're like, I really wish I would have tried at some point. So I was like, man, just shut up and do it. Because I don't want to listen to this for the next half century. So, and she's like, I'm a middle school special ed teacher. I can't join the military. I'm like, dude, that's pretty much what I was as a staff sergeant in the Army, dude. I was I was dragging around a bunch of people with intellectual disabilities, trying to keep from killing themselves, man. I mean, you're good to go. And I was right, of course. So she's been flying. She picked up 6, which is Petty Officer 1. I'm sorry. We picked up 6.
That's right.
Which is right. Petty Officer 1.
Her rank is your rank. Remember that.
In like 3 years. So she's killing it, man.
Oh, good for her. Well, so before we get into that, remember, let's back up. Look, no matter what you say, half of the people are offended by default. All right. That's where we start on social media. And then we kind of go from one side to the other. Half automatically offended, half automatically support, think it's the greatest thing ever. And then you just kind of chip away at each side. All right. So there we are. All right. So what made you join the Army, man? 2005, things were a little hot and heavy going on there. Surge stuff was kicking off. It was getting serious in Iraq. So what brought you to become a fine American and join this damn Army?
Yeah, September 11th.
Yep.
I woke up like 10 minutes late for school, so I decided to skip the whole day. And I poured a big bowl of whatever the knockoff Fruity Pebbles were. I forget now.
So not white you didn't have a White Monster new fashion back then?
No. Those too young. Just working on my dad's Crown stash. So you turn on the TV, right as the second plane came in and hit the building.
I think a lot of us did. And it was right around that second plane because no one really took the first plane serious. We're like,
Yeah, maybe not. I mean, and like I said, I just been at home by myself, so I didn't. So that was it. And for a long time, I must have been a freshman or sophomore in high school, but I really was like, I wanted to be like an air marshal, because I was like, I want to be the guy who can like pull the trigger and keep this from happening.
Yeah.
And so I spent a really long time calling all of these like because we had a computer, we had internet, and so I'd call these random like federal agencies and be like, how do I do this job? And they're like, are you a child? And I was like, yeah. And they would just like hang up on me. And eventually I got this lady who was like, well, most of our air marshals are retired feds. They're like, former military guys, but most of the time they have a degree.
Yeah.
And I was like, I really don't want to go to college. But she said, if you pick a job, if you do we have a lot of guys from military jobs who are like counterintelligence guys and stuff like that who come right across. And she said that might be a good avenue if you don't want to go to college. Anyway, just random lady is that like some like FBI field office I'd called, just like talk me through it. And so now I was like, all right, I'm gonna do the Army. I'm gonna do some intel thing. And I graduated at 17 and my mom would not sign the age waiver. So
right.
I did a semester of like art school. And then I joined to Fort Benning, then Fort Huachuca for AIT. Got there as the Abu G scandal was popping off.
Oh shit!
And they shut down the Gator School for a while, and there's a huge backlog.
So did you go to Monterey at all? I was curious.
No, man. No,
okay.
I never went.
Yeah, I was wondering. So who goes to Monterey? Because I've been there twice, and every time I walk through, I'm always like, because it looks like there's like little AIT portion because there's drill sergeants and they're marching little privates, and every barracks is like its own language
So
hub.
I know signal guys go there. The
Okay.
front half of the Interrogator surge went there.
Okay.
Originally, you had to go there to be a Gator. They waived it after they were like just had such a huge shortage of 97 Echoes. So yeah.
All right, so there you go, and you finished Huachuca. How long was your training? That's a long ass AIT, wasn't it?
Yeah, I mean, it took forever to get into, man. Like, I actually got detailed out to like the JAG thing for a little while, and then I dodged like a rock painting detail that went on for some time, and I ended up I was assigned to the MWR range, so I just got to shoot a bunch, and it was also like right after the AWB expired, so I could just like order AR-15 components from their like Davidson's dealer account from the MWRs. Like all day, just like buying gun parts and teaching people how to like shoot safely or whatever. It wasn't a bad gig for like a Joe.
That's pretty much
so I finished and left. I ended up at Fort Lewis 2ID in 2007. Yeah.
Damn, we were almost at you were at Lewis, I assume, in 2009.
Oh yeah, all the way to 13, man. I was assigned
yeah.
there most of the time, although I spent a lot of time away training and doing other stuff. But
so they used to do LDAC there at Fort Lewis, and we were drill sergeants at Fort Benning at the time in 2009, and we had a cycle break for 6 weeks, so they sent us out to Fort Lewis to be OP4 for the cadets doing their little.
Oh, Warrior Forge, man.
Yeah.
Yes, dude. I got sent there as a punishment to be like a lane safety because I had pissed somebody off. Yeah. And then I got sent back to my unit for bullying cadets. So it was a pretty short turnaround.
That was pretty much what me and my buddy did. Like, so we were OP4, and my buddy, he took competition with these cadet squads way too seriously. Like, we were a 2-man team running like a command post that they were supposed to assault, look for intelligence, eliminate us and all this stuff. And my buddy's like, nah, I'm gonna make this really fucking hard for him. And we were doing like tripwires, and we would write signs that said bomb and hide them under rock. We were getting a little extra, but it was good. And then like he would freak out and be legitimately pissed off when he would shoot cadets and ambush them from the side or something, and they wouldn't die, and they'd start shooting back at him, and he'd get really pissed off because God, what's who's the dude that follows him? That's like great in
OC.
Yeah. So he'd be like, "Oh, you're dead now. Get down." He's like, "No, fuck that. I killed like 3 of them." And like, bro. he was so
like sweaty tryhards in paintball, dude.
I know, he took it so serious, but it was funny because like it was weird where we were at. We were down kind of like in this little on the bottom of a ridge, and he would go up, and we would shoot a few blanks up in the air when we could hear him coming, because they all come down the same cadet trails. And it'd be funny because we'd shoot like a few blanks when we hear them, and they would just start yelling and start shooting at nothing as we would walk down the ridge and wait for him to come. Like, it was great. It was a good 6 weeks. I bring that up because you were at Fort Lewis and you were there. You remember those big ant mounds?
Yes, I do.
Yeah, we paid one of our buddies like $10 to jump headfirst into one. That was a bad idea. Apparently they're protected. I didn't. Whatever.
I mean, everything's protected over there. Everything's protected over there.
It's true.
Like if you literally poured chemicals into the woods, they'd be like, "Stop! You can't decontaminate that because now it's protected." That doesn't fucking make any sense.
Yeah, I got a great picture of me as OP4 eating a cheeseburger, shooting at cadets with an M16 and my shirt off. It's great. It's somewhere on there.
Classic.
Yeah, I'll post that and tag you in it later. But anyway, so that was Fort Lewis. Fort Lewis is great. I enjoyed Fort Lewis. I don't know if you did. You were stationed there. I was there 6 weeks. It's a little different. And I was in the summer, so I didn't have to deal with shitty weather.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, the rain definitely got old, 50-degree drizzle, running around in booty shorts or whatever every morning. It was just like gets old super quick. But yeah, I mean, it's beautiful area. There's great hiking. I used to take like my kayak out on the sound and like stick my dog in it and then take him to like a little sandbar and just like watch that guy murder gooey ducks. Which are you familiar with gooey ducks?
Yeah, I saw one of those weird
Oh, dude, it's heinous,
shows.
bro. It's heinous, and it's like it's even more weird watching a dog kill one. But he just had such a good time. I didn't have the heart to like take it away from him, and then he like got a taste for it, So
yeah, it's a weird creature, the gooey duck.
there's no good way to even describe it.
It's nature's shell penis, is what it is. It's a shell penis. So, all right, and your dog likes to have them.
Yeah, right. Yeah, he's a fan of. Well, of violently taking their lives or whatever.
I wonder what set him off. I wonder, like, what if it was just like the scent of the sight. I wonder what it was that would just set your dog off. Yeah, I got to eliminate as many of these nature penises as possible.
So jihad on gooey ducks.
So the first. So all right. So your first deployment to Afghanistan was then 2009.
Yep. So so that was the 2009 surge to.
So you were coming into like
hard.
multicam era. You were transitioning. Right?
So that was an ACU tour.
Ooh, I bet that was wonderful.
Yeah, they get filled. We had like the Gen 1 like combat shirts that just disintegrated, and I don't know. I was like, I would say probably half the time, maybe more. Like, I had like clothing, grooming standards shit. So it wasn't like, it was easier for me probably than everybody else. But, like when I was rolling around with like 200 infantry and like Argonaut River Valley, that was all uniform and stuff like that, ripping crotches and doing the Mowgli rap with the undershirts.
And so, all right. So your first tour, how'd it go? Was it kind of what you expected, since you waited a while, I guess, to get over, since,
yeah, man. I honestly almost got out before that. We 5th Striker Brigade was a new stand-up unit. It was supposed to be the Army's like rotational, like next gen equipment tester. Yeah. So they weren't slated to deploy. And my first contract was running up. And my first sergeant had it was a great unit. Like we had all the right people in all the right places, to the point where I was convinced that the Army was just perfect and amazing. And my first sergeant was a group guy, so like, when I'm like it was like very competitive. So like I got to go to all these cool guy schools as like an E4, because like I was outperforming like the staffs and sergeant first classes who would show up, and he just like didn't give a fuck about rank. So he'd be like, no, high performers go to cool guy schools. It was really great, man. Dude, it was so good. And so I got to do a bunch of really cool stuff. I got to do like a lot of FBI mission support in different states. He definitely found really awesome ways to keep us engaged and growing and training. And then he got a bunch of folks like orders to go to AFRICOM. And then the Obama surge was signed, and we found out we were going. And he was like, "Well, you want to?" I'm like, "Yeah, no, I'm going with the unit, bro." So it was a really hard tour. Certainly, like it was definitely all of the best things that I thought, like the Army and like war and all that would be. But it was also like, all the really terrible stuff that you don't really think about, I guess, on the front end. Or maybe you just think about abstractly. So, we had 42 guys killed, about 350 some odd like casualty, like multi GSW.
Or are you just talking about while you were in country?
Yeah, for that year. So we had an entire battalion that was that ended up being like combat ineffective. I think they lost like 20 some strikers. I think our brigade sustained the most casualties of any unit in that conflict so far.
What part were you guys in? Like what part of the country?
Canada. So it was like Kandahar, Argonaut River Valley.
Okay.
I spent
RC
the
West
second
area.
I spent like maybe the last 60% of my tour on the border.
Okay.
Like Boldak.
Okay, yeah, because I was wondering, like, I was curious where the hell they were running all the strikers.
So like Zari, Argandab.
Yeah. Crazy, man. Damn.
Yeah, so it was essentially our BCT was like ripping out with like all the Canadian and Brits and all those other folks who had been kind of holding that stuff down for the last, like 5 years. and they ended up replacing every single one of our battalions with a full BCT from like 82nd, and so you know,
That was a
and
shitty
like I
year,
burned
though.
it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a shitty year.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was very interesting, man, because at that point, you know, the Taliban had really like, I mean, they had rebuilt to like a functional army with like its own like bureaucracy and like like legitimate logistics systems, and
Yeah.
so you know, it was definitely something wild to take a Cherry Light mech unit into, right? And you know, the Arghandab River Valley, right, is where like every like major army from the last like from like history has been stopped,
Yeah.
right?
Yep.
You know, the Mongols were stopped there, Alexander the Great was stopped there. You know, the Russians, I think it was like 5,000 Russian vehicles were like destroyed in the crossroads.
That's fucking crazy. It's
really crazy. So it's definitely not the place you want to roll like two like infantry, you know, infantry battalions with strikers into. But I mean, it was, you know, relative to my unit, man, you know, I don't know, I maybe spent like a week and a half in like actual fighting, right? But so a lot of those guys were there for like months and months until they had just sustained enough casualties that they got rolled back or plussed up.
It's fucking crazy, man. Like it really is to think about how sustained that is. It's like, well, it's day one. And then it's like, well, here we are now, 3 months later, 6 months later, 9 months. You know, it's just, I don't, it's just too much of this is lost on the average person, man. Because most people just don't know it. You know, you can sit here and tell me your stories, and I can at least conceptualize the area because I've seen it or been to it or whatever. Or I've read some of the stuff, but I just think like these stories, man, most people have no concept of what the American soldiers done for the last going on 20 years, literally 20 years at this point.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, so like just today, for an example, I spoke to a dude he's just down to join. Kid's 17. The dude was born like the middle of 2003. So you know, it's just weird to just see our guys bringing people in now that they weren't even alive during 9/11, right? The triggering event for us. And then they weren't alive for the start of the last major ground force war that we've had. You know what I mean? So it's just, we've completely transitioned into a new era. And I kind of go back and think about it like when you and I were coming in, because I came in 2002, and I just think like, I remember seeing dudes who were in Desert Storm and like, damn. But that's even sooner in terms of the time from people coming in now. Like we're talking 20 years. And this, you know, Desert Storm was like 8 or 9 from when I came in. You know what I mean?
So longest war in history, right? In our history.
Oh my God, yeah.
I mean,
we
I guess
fought World War II 5
times.
Like
right. Yeah.
That's what it is. Like World War II 5 times, basically 4 times, essentially.
But then you consider like the scope and the significance of the objective comparatively to campaigns like that. You know, you just I don't know, man. It's, you know, the Afghanistan. Well, I don't know if we want to kick into wonk talk yet.
No, do it, because I already know where I'm going next. So,
so I mean, the invasion of Afghanistan, right, was righteous and supported by the entirety of the American people and our representatives. You know, we gave the Taliban government the option and ability to give us bin Laden and the Al Qaeda supporters who orchestrated this attack, and they refused. And so the Congress passed 2001 AUMF, right? Which is a whole big thing that I work on now, man. It's kind of how I found my way to this organization. But I mean, this thing was, and anybody watching this, please Google the 2001 AOMF and read it. I guarantee you can read it. It's less than a third of a page. And it's, you know, it's written in the past tense, and it's essentially, outlines a punitive campaign, AKA a geopolitical spanking, that, you know, that the American people wanted to hand out to these clowns for killing all of our people and our first responders, right? Destroying one of our great cities.
So hold on, not to cut you off, because I like to do this for those that don't know the acronyms and stuff. So real quick, so the AUMF. So what he's saying is the 2001 authorization for use of military force. That's what he's talking about. All right, Sam, carry on.
Yep. Way to go. Yeah. No.
Wait, take a sip. Go ahead. Go ahead and hydrate with that new fashion. I get it. You gotta. Oh my goodness. Yeah.
It's so good. If I mail you a white monster, will you try it?
Yeah, if it
Just
survives
one
the
though.
journey, yeah, I'll do it.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
first one's free.
All
That's
right,
how it works, right?
free. Sweet. Send the
Um,
cherries for sure, because that's the real prize.
Dude, hey, so just so you know, man, I get the restaurant size cans off of Amazon because they're cheap, and then I can them in like
Oh, that's
mason
legit.
jars from like a grocery store, and they last for like 3 years on the in jars, and it costs like maybe 20% of what you would cost to get the thing retail.
There you go. You get life hacks on There Will Be Bourbon. Thanks, Sam. Appreciate that.
You're welcome, brother. So the 2001 AUMF is this, and I guess let me flip back to my second tour, my second unit, which was an intel unit that I affectionately refer to as Pogadishu. It was just awful.
Where were you at? Because this is where I was. Like I said, we overlapped, so I was just curious.
Yeah, so this was at the BFSB,
okay.
which was like the intermediate trash left over from destroying MI brigades. And I mean, I'm talking a bunch of shit because it was my least favorite of 2 units or whatever. But I did have some great commanders. I had a great first sergeant there for a while. I had great soldiers. It was pretty good. But it was a typical Pogue unit where they probably spent 3 times as much time and energy trying to pretend to be what they thought an infantry unit was as it would have taken to just do battle drills and like actually just like practice basic soldier skills.
Yeah,
This was a very frustrating experience.
You got that, like the basic warrior task and drills. You got your mission essential task list. Just do those things. That's it. That's all you got to do. You don't got to do anything.
It's not hard,
else.
man.
It's already written for you.
I got like, my first like month there, dude, I got like a negative counseling statement for doing like a gear shakeout and like, and some like rubber duck time, man. And anyway, I ended up getting guilted into staying on because they ended up with an Afghanistan deployment. They had like 2 non-coms in the entire battalion who had actually like done their job in an actual combat zone. And my first sergeant, who I still love to this day, was like, "Come on, man, you're gonna let one of these other clowns take your Joes to war? You just gonna like hope they bring them out?" Like, oh, come on.
The old gut punch.
Oh. All right, so whatever, man. So I did the tour, and it was also the place where I started seeing a lot more of like the Army's bureaucracy and the Defense Department, NATO's kind of State Department, like all these organizations spending a lot more time really competing with each other than like
which is what I thought like 9/11 was supposed to solve, right? It was supposed to bring about actual crosstalk and remove the competition.
Yes,
each
right.
other.
So I mean, like the DNI certainly was supposed to do that, and I don't know, man. So I was a little disenfranchised. I had lost my my re-up slot to 10th group, and so I was just like, man, I'm gonna go see what's happening in Wisconsin. I think I need to take a break. So I got out. I had moved back to Wisconsin, and ended up in college.
How'd that go?
I still remember like I sent all these people it was a state school. I sent all these people like my paperwork, all this stuff way ahead of time. Like 6 months in advance when I was projected to start. I done everything, done all the GI Bill stuff. Everything was great. And I'm like driving down to Arizona from Wisconsin because my grandma's dying of cancer, and I get a call, and they're like, "Hey, you're scheduled for the wrong like initial like testing to get it, like for like your math and English levels."
CLEP stuff. CLEP.
Yeah, right. So they're like, you're just scheduled for the wrong one. You scheduled new college student, and you're in like an alternative student because you're old. And I was like, well, okay, well, cool. Well, when do I take the other one? And they're like, well, we don't offer it anymore, but you can take it in like 3 weeks. And I'm like, but that's like 2 weeks into the start of the semester. And they're like, yeah, but it's fine. Tons of people do that. And I was like, okay, well, can I still pick my classes? And they're like, no, you can't pick classes until you've done that. And I'm like, well, so you want me to start classes 2 weeks late? And she's like, well, yeah, but tons of people do that. And I'm just like, I'm getting really heated. I'm like, I've been driving for like 25 hours. And
That's how
I'm
serious
just like, what's the
college is in
difference
America.
between,
It's a very
dude, I'm just like,
serious
what's the difference
institute. Yeah.
between the alternative student testing and the new student testing? And she's like, well, they're on different days. It's the same test. And I'm like, well, change it back. And she's like, well, I can't change it back. I've already changed it. And I'm like, is it fucking Skynet? Like, what are we like? Are you serious? Dude, and like, I was like, oh my God, it's a fucking terrible S shop all over again. And then like, I drive back up there because I'm like, I just have to fight with him in person, dude, because I'm a 26-year-old staff sergeant, dude. I don't fucking do things at the last minute. So I submitted my paperwork 6 months in advance because like this is not how I live my life. And I'm like heated already. And then they were arguing with me about whether or not I had to pay for my student ID. And I was like, dude, this is like total digression, bro. But I'm just like,
No, I like
they're
it.
like,
This
well,
is good.
they're like, they don't like, well, it doesn't say that you paid for it. And it's like $7, right? I'm like, well, that's great. I'll just pay for it. She's like, well, it doesn't say you don't have to pay for it. And I'm like, just take my money, please, and give me the card so I can go do this next thing. And because I'm still trying to, like, they won't let me meet with the people to talk about the CLEP thing until I have the ID. And she's just like, no, I'm sorry. Until it says if you have to pay or not, I can't give you an ID. And I'm just like, all right, well, where do I fix that? She's like, I don't know. And dude, she has on her desk a certificate of 16 years of working in this department. And I was just like, you've been here for 16 years? And she's like, yeah. And I'm like, where does everybody come from before they talk to you? And she's just like, I don't know. And I'm like, how the fuck can you not just like through osmosis learn these peripheral functions, dude? Like, and I was like, oh, okay, I can't. I'm like seeing red now. I'm like, you know what? I'll be back next semester. And I didn't realize the semesters are like fucking 5 months long. So then I was just sitting on ass for a while, cooling down, being a drunk and working out a little bit. And so
watching
then I
Packers
ended up in school all the time. Then I ended up in school. The reason I came to this university is that they said that they accepted the Joint Service Transcript, which is it's like a federal transcript that you get from any training you've done. And I'd done a bunch of like cool guy intel schools and stuff. So I had like over 100 something credits. So I'm thinking this is great, right? I'm going to maybe like do 2 years of school here. 4, they gave me 4 Phi-Ed credits. And like I appealed it like 3 separate times, dude. I'm like, what was your major? I'm like, first off, dude, I'm fat. So like, you shouldn't even probably be giving me those, dude. Like, at least maybe take a PT test first. But second off, like, you know, they've had like intro to public speaking.
Yeah. What did you major in?
Like,
what was your major?
I'm really trying not to get like do the pre-law political science.
Yeah, because I did political science and they gave me, I guess it just depends on the school, but that was my second attempt at school. Anyway, It's about you, not me. Go ahead.
Yeah, dude. So anyway, like I'm talking to this professor, man, and she's in like they spend 6 months with 600 17-and-a-half-year-olds all trying to write a 4-minute speech for a semester. Like, that's the task. It's causing me physical pain to be around these people. And I'm just like, hey, listen, I'm really trying not to get special treatment or anything here, but I'm like, I was like a senior intel dude. Can I go teach a guest lecture at like global studies security or something? Can I add some value here and get like a comp out of this class? And she's like, no, this is very important. I'm like, I know. That's why I have 12 credits of advanced technical communication on my JST. And she's like, I can't do anything. I'm sorry. You have to take this. So I spent the semester writing a speech about torture and murder at CIA black site prisons in Iraq and Egypt. And I just traumatized my whole class. It was really good. That's me, man. And then I rage quit school and went back to Afghanistan. I got a phone call asking if I wanted to come back and serve my country. And I, at first I was like, no, but paid pretty well. So I went back for a year, and I was in Kabul that year for my 3rd year. And
see, that's where I
was good, man. 13. But it was
okay. Did you go to NKC?
That's where I was at, bro.
Sweet. That's where I was at 13 and 14. NKC in the same, hanging out in the basement.
in the basement of that British like 6-story building or whatever it was.
Yeah, it was great. I
Next
had
to
my
the
own
little
room
gym?
because I had my own room and it connected my wing connected to the gym to where you technically didn't have to go outside all day
That's
except
where
to
I
go.
was, dude. Shut
Yeah,
up, bro.
it
You're
was
messing with
great.
me right now.
So no, and the best part about it was I got there after 2 months. I had this E8 that was my roommate, and he was PCS, and he's like, "Yeah, I'm just gonna leave." I'm like, "What do you mean?" He's like, "I'm not gonna turn my key or anything in. That way you don't get a roommate."
It's
I
all
was like,
you.
"Sweet." So I didn't have a roommate
Dude,
for 7 months. It was awesome.
that's funny. Yeah, the Mongolian army ran security there while I was
Yeah, they
there.
did
I
the
don't know who.
ECPs. Yeah, they used to
Yeah,
do the ECPs.
they had that fucking battle yurt, and they just like went around graffitiing Genghis Khan on everything.
Yeah, well, but that was where I've told this story before. That was the place where like I left my UCF, my University of Central Florida shirt in the bathroom, and I caught one of the like the little TNA walking around with it like 3 weeks later, and he's like, "Yeah, I love the school." I'm like, "So do I. It's mine. Give me my fucking shirt, you fucker." Yeah, we did all kinds of really dumb shit because we were part of First TSC. We were attached to them, so we were at 2-star level. So we really got to do whatever we want as long as you could draw up the con app to support it. Like
Yep.
me and my other NCO, we would just make a con op to fly to Bagram for the day on the helicopter, the daily little helicopters, just so we could go to Popeyes.
Yeah,
We would do dumb. We
dude.
did
I
a lot
watched one of
dumb
those
shit.
hit a P-tids and go down, man. One of the British ones.
Really? Oh shit.
Yeah, you know those little British ones that like to fly like go-karts sideways all the time.
None of the like my experience in Afghanistan started off really poorly. Let's just start when I got into Kuwait, right? So we're at Ali Salim getting ready to take the C-17 up to fucking Bagram, and we're going down the runway, and we're just getting ready to take off. And you know how you're on a C-17, you're up against the wall, and then all of a sudden it was like they slam on the brakes, and we get out, and they're like, "Oh, everybody off! We've got engine trouble." And I'm like, "All right." And it's like this was early June, I think, first week of June, so it's super fucking hot on the tarmac in Ali Salim.
Yep.
That flight obviously gets canceled. We can't get another flight for another week. So another week in the transient barracks there on Ali Salim, just hanging out at Green Beans and looking at the Air Force chilling all day. Finally get up to there, get to Bagram, and then we got to take that helicopter that you're describing from Bagram to NKC, which is like 15 minutes. No big deal.
Right.
But that was my honest, legitimate first time ever in my Army career on a helicopter. And it was not a stable ride for 15
Just
minutes.
Legs
it was
hanging out the side, right?
Dude,
in the wind,
like,
right?
And we're flying so low. I'm just like, what is safe about this? Like, I'm looking at the huts down on the bottom on the hills. I'm looking at all these people looking up at us. I'm like, if anyone wants to just shoot me out of this, they could. You know, this is not a very hard target.
Yeah,
Is this a problem?
I'm gonna be in rough shape. Yeah.
But every helicopter, because I must have went on, I don't know, 30 or 40 of them while we were there. That's all I did was do battlefield circulation, but it was always on those helicopters. I got to be on one Black Hawk where I finally felt safe one time, because Black Hawks were only for people who clearly are important, and I was not. So
see, I'm a Chinook guy, man. I like because I never
been on a Chinook
with all my shit on.
Yeah, never been on one. But I was also terrified of Chinooks because you remember Operation Red Wings and all that stuff had just taken place fairly recently.
Yes.
Like I was scared of Chinooks. So I was like, man, they seem to always have bad times. I don't want to be on.
That's how I was about the Ospreys, man. I probably the only cool mission I was like, no, man, I'm definitely not going on that one. My first tour at the end, the task force was going to hit this target and they were going to refuel, and it was a target I was working there. Like, do you want to go? And I'm like, hell yeah, I want to go. And I get all my crap on. I run out to the helipad, dude. And it's an Osprey. It's Crash Hawk, dude. I'm like, dude, there's no way. I'm not doing it. I got like 2 months left in country. I'm surprised I lived this long, bro. I'm not getting on that death machine, man.
Well, so before I tell the sad part, but anyway, so I remember my first night getting into NKC, and yeah, you know, the Mongolian dudes were doing the ECPs, but you had the ANA doing the tower guards, you know, those 12 towers around the compound. And I was like, man, I'm feeling good. I'm gonna go out for a run. And so, you know, I go out for my first run, and I didn't realize.
Are you sure you're not an officer, dude? That's an officer move, bro. That's big S6 energy right there, dog.
Yeah. So I go on my first run, and I hit the first tower, and I'm like, you know, seeing these ANA dudes with AKs, and I'm like, maybe it's just that tower. And I get to the second one, I'm like, oh shit. And then I just remember running around that because it was only like 2/3 of a mile around the compound, like a little L, right? I only felt safe at one point in time, and it was just that little back end section right before, like, I think it was ECP2 that went out to the embassy side, where it was like the dogs were kept. I think they might have been, yeah. So I was like, all right, this is cool. These guys seem like Americans, so I feel comfortable here. But every time I'd run by one of those towers, like, I swear I felt eyes on me. I'm like, I'm gonna get shot in the fucking back.
That's because they're looking at you. It's,
yeah, no, I'm gonna get shot.
They're just
Someone's gonna shoot me.
They're just bored.
But anyway, so here's a great thing we did that year as well. So we ran on NKC the Marine Corps Marathon in conjunction with them doing it back home.
Oh, that's cool.
It was cool, but we had to postpone it for 2 weeks because of security risk, right? So we end up running it, and I got the medal. I got the Marine Corps, the actual Marine Corps Marathon medal. They shipped us all that stuff because the guy who ran it was like a Navy lieutenant or something. I don't know. But he actually organized it. I got cool pictures of it. But here was what's funny about that, because you already know it was 2/3 of a mile around. Dude, it was 38 laps. Or 39, something stupid. And they would blow a horn like every hour for us to change directions and go back. It was like 30 degrees. It was fucking super windy. I was like, what am I doing? And I did all that. The only reason I did it was because I was told I could have the day off.
Right. I did the you know the DaneCon march. You ever do one of those? So it's I don't remember if it's like 50. I don't remember how far. I think it's like 50 miles or something.
Oh no.
But they did one because we had a Danish contingent at NKC. So we did one, and it was like all these dudes in uniform, all these Mongolians, and then just like me wearing like a bright blue tracksuit or something like that with my huge ruck on. And I don't know, it like took a long time, bro. These little hard ass Mongolian dudes, man, they were like, and they're like hand-me-down boots, bro, with their AKs and stuff. With just like they ran this whole thing, and I'm just like, nah, man, that's for the birds, dude.
It really is.
That's too far.
Yeah, it really is. I got, like I said, just because of the level we were at and being able to go over to the G3 and be like, hey, I got this con out real quick. Can I just go over to Kaya, right? We would go down the street to Kaya because they had all the international soldiers and food and restaurants.
The Turks.
I just remember the Czech army, the Czech women.
Oh, okay.
But anyway, we would go down there like once a week for fucking just to go to a restaurant there because we only had that little pizza shop. I don't know if they turned it into something different by the time you showed up, but all we had on NKC was that little pizza place.
Yeah, that was it.
Yeah, but Kaya had all kinds of good food, so we would make up con ops to go there. We did a lot of dumb shit, man. Yeah, did a lot of dumb shit. All right, so real quick before I come up with the other story, I gotta look up a detail on it before. I don't want to say it wrong. All right, so you went back in 2015, 2016. You were a contractor. You're at NKC. Yeah. So what were you primarily? Were you with Mr. Buttigieg He overlapped me as well. The whole Pete Buttigieg.
No. I wasn't a driver. I was. I did drive sometimes for our team. So yeah, I was on a intel detachment up there, doing that stuff for a year. I was supposed to be like up to a three-year tour. And it was also, man, it was weird because I was at this like higher level now, right? We're like, our org was like, work for the J2, and, I guess this big vision, this master plan, this grand strategy that like Sergeant me and then Staff Sergeant me was like, yeah, that's probably up there somewhere. That's just out of my like bubble. I kind of like saw firsthand that thing did not exist. Right. Mm-hmm. Kind of had a close call on a mission. Was kind of like talking it over with some folks, and asked a general officer pretty directly. He's like, well, are you gonna stick around? And I was like, dude, can I ask you a super specific question? And he's like, sure. And I'm like, what is it exactly that we are doing here? Like, precisely, what is it we're doing here? Dude, my guy was like, well, supporting governance, fighting Islamic State, fighting Taliban, fighting Connie. Cool. But mostly just protecting each other and spinning our wheels until the American people decide we've had enough. And I was like, whoa.
That's pretty blunt.
I'll be honest, man. I think, if I could do it all over again, I should have just got out after my first tour and done reserves or something like that. I think both of my follow-on tours were some kind of quest for something in between, like redemption or revenge, right? A bunch of buddies killed my first trip, and I think, but that third tour was also my first one with kids, um, and and there was a situation where I think I aired for de-escalation, whereas I think in previous tours I probably would have, gone hot or whatever. And so I don't know, man. The cowboy math really changes, right? Like once you have some kids, and I've talked to a bunch of guys since, who have all said the same thing, that it's that a lot of guys who've changed gigs and stuff like that, and so I was like, I just can't do this anymore. I talked to my wife, and we had a newborn, my oldest daughter, and I was like, I just can't, I can't do this. I got to come home. So I came back, but I think I was still dealing with a lot of guilt, right? Because like, just survivor's guilt's a bitch in general. B, like I'm a pogue, right? But like, as like a tactical / strategic asset, like, my job is literally to be like an invisible first line. I'm supposed to disrupt enemy networks, logistics, ID like major ambushes and large scale operations before they have an opportunity to essentially light up these 17-year-old E2 infantry dudes with a mouthful of dip in a guard shack, right? And so it's kind of hard to walk away from that and not feel like I was like abandoning some serious responsibility. And so I'm like, come back, and I'm like, I guess better finish college. And so I also realized that my university had almost 1,800, I think, student vets that go in there at the time, which is like the largest group in the surrounding like 8 states, right?
All trying to figure out if they have to pay for their ID card or not.
Dude, and you know what, man? And so I was like, man, you know what? I bet this school is ripping all these people off on their credits too. And everybody like me is just either leaving or just taking it on the chin. And so I was like, I'm gonna figure this shit out and fight it. And so I spent a bunch of time driving to DC and back on the weekend, flying to DC. I would go to the Capitol, just like trying to figure out where the failure points were in these policies. And I ended up eventually getting a law passed in Wisconsin that forced the university to give 100% of those credits. So it was like 40,000 credit hours at our university alone.
Look at you, Big Sam Rogers.
Right, man. And like, it was rewarding and all this other stuff. And then really how I ended up at CVA, I had been using my SVA chapter. We had been supporting CVA's fight for the VA Mission Act, right? To increase access to community options for healthcare for veterans. We've been supporting a lot of the work that they were doing. And 2018, I was at the United Nations. They had this like program through our state university. It was super interesting, man. Like I ended up the Afghan ambassador ended up like inviting me to come to the Security Council for the Afghanistan war debate, and just like I watched like all these other countries like talking over or past like Afghanistan's representative, who was like, we have serious problems with like lack of trained medical personnel, and infant mortality rate is skyrocketing and all this other stuff, dude. And then like, somebody from this Euro country's like, we're going to build you a hydroelectric dam. And he's like, yeah. I mean, like they've blown that thing up like 2 times. We don't even have anybody who can run it. We don't even have functioning schools. Anything,
like,
he's like, these kids are dying, man. Like we have like poor sanitation. We have like all this and they're just like, yeah, but that hydro dam's going to be dope though. And then, man, right at the end of that, right as I was leaving there, I went home. I went back to like the place I was staying during this program, and found out that my protege from my second unit was killed in Somalia with third group, and that was that was like, I don't know, man, really floored me. Because I think I had like convinced myself that the war was at a lull, right? That like most of the guys I knew were out, so they're out of harm's way. I didn't have to sweat it anymore. And so it really kind of took me back. And then we went like did the funeral stuff, all those things. And I went back to pre-law, and like we're doing constitutional law, and I'm studying the AUMF, and I'm like doing this research, man. And I find that like, okay, in 2018, this third of a page document that the American people issued to send the Army and Marine Corps and all these folks to Afghanistan was essentially the justification document for my dude being in the middle of Africa in 2018, right? And so, so there's no one to hold accountable for that, really. And I'm this is not even to say that investing people in infrastructure and doing all this stuff in Africa is legitimate or not, right? That's not really my position here. My position is that I think after Iraq, where 85% of the people who voted to invade Iraq were thrown out of office, right? Congress stopped wanting to do one of really their only three responsibilities, man. You've got the war powers, you've got the power to legislate, the power of the purse. Well, the purse has been empty for like 30 years. The majority leader is the only person legislating.
Right? Buy Dogecoin.
To the moon. And yeah, so and like, they don't want to do that because there's an accountability piece that's built into this War Powers Act, which is that everyone has to take a by name vote, right? Are we willing to let our best and brightest, our sons and daughters, our sisters and brothers, our high school friends, are we willing to let these people bleed for something, for this thing, whatever this thing is, right?
Yeah. And
the problem with the AUMF and pretty much every administration up, on the short handful of things that were great about the previous administration, right? And it's a whatever, however you feel about it,
right?
It's the previous two administrations to his. I mean, they reimagined this document over and over and over again to include like 42 different countries. And the problem with that is it essentially became this green light for the Defense Department and State Department and all these other agencies to mission creep their way into, blank checks and sweet Oconus funds, and without ever having the ability to hold someone accountable for the regular people, like for voters, for members of the public, for, Gold Star moms and dads. There's never been a discussion about like, okay, is this place in our national interest? Is this thing in our national interest? And without that, we as a nation and military force have suffered and performed poorly every time there hasn't been that public and rigorous debate and discussion, right? World War I and World War II, man, like one of the indisputable reasons we performed so well, that we got to sweep through and clench the V there. I mean, like, we didn't get involved until it was the absolute last fucking option. We got dragged into the second one, right? And if we had just like allowed, a combination of like, pro-military think tanks and revolving door between industries and the Pentagon and the White House to just like decide, oh man, this war looks big and dope. Let's jump in on the front end, man. Let's invest early. Who knows how that would have looked, right?
Yeah.
And so the position our organization takes, and one of the reasons I think that it has been so successful in moving the public position meter on this, right, is that we're not anti-war. We're certainly not anti-military.
Right.
I'm certainly neither of those things.
Yeah, it's not about that.
It's not about that, man. It's just about making sure that we are checking all of the right blocks that were built into the front end of the system that are the reason this system has survived so long, right? And I think, I mean, you can look at this a whole lot of ways. You know, we approach this from a fiscal perspective, a national security perspective. We approach it from a constitutional perspective that I discussed a little bit, and a moral perspective, right? You know, this is an issue that people across all political ideologies support. Our polling that we just got in this year is like, it's like another 10% upward movement in like public polling. Like everybody agrees that it's time to leave Afghanistan, but our leaders don't want to take their responsibility back from the executive branch, right?
So, well, let me stop you there, because I want to go back, because you said something that was true, right? You know, initially it was the right thing to do. We went into Afghanistan a few weeks after 9/11. What has happened to where, in your opinion, based on the interactions you've had at Congress, because you've gone and done this, you've lobbied, I assume, for your organization.
Oh, yeah.
What's the problem? I mean, I know you're saying people don't want to put their name, but that to me seems like a really fucking poor excuse. That seems like a total cop out.
Well, it's a poor excuse for people who have skin in the game, right?
Yeah.
It's like, because it's something that we would, I mean, we have accepted the idea at some point that we're willing to die for this.
Right.
And these are people who, what they're willing to sacrifice fundraising time for is questionable, right? Like, and that there's a much, I think, larger conversation about all the whys that Congress has broken. But this, I think, speaks to the root of the problem, that we continuously reelect people who play it safe, spit rhetoric. I mean, you know, it was crazy to me. And I was not politically engaged while I was in, because I'm sure you experienced this. The most political people in the Army are always the motherfuckers not doing any work. And they've always got some excuse. So, because Obama, because Bush, because whatever, dude, I'm like tired of it. And so I avoided it largely while I was in. But I think part of the problem, and a lot of guys that I meet, we're a volunteer-led organization, right? So everything that we've accomplished comes from sharing the stories and insights of veterans with legislators to try to move them on an issue, or the public, right? To try to raise public awareness and therefore public pressure on elected officials to make decisions and make change. But there's no reason for them to address this, because right now with an AUMF that has essentially been largely unchallenged as to encompassing all of planet Earth forever, despite being about Afghanistan and written in the past tense. I think they're just perfectly happy with letting it be.
But you know, my question is, again, you brought it up, like, whatever you thought about the previous administration, we didn't get into anything new, essentially, right? We didn't start
first time in 40 some years, man.
Yeah, right. Like nothing new started.
Yep.
But why was my issue? I have a real, like, I don't get it, because look, I did political science. I majored in it. I thought certain things are possible, right? Because Obama went in on this. He campaigned on it. We were going to end it. Trump went in.
He wasn't incorrect, right?
I know, but so how have two polar opposite presidents, how have those two individuals who were in charge, like the buck stops here, right? How were those two polar opposite individuals unable to end an unpopular? It's not like this is like a popular war. How were two presidents unable to end it?
About it? We will run like phone banks on this stuff, where we'll call through districts, you know, and ask people to call their representatives to lean on them about these issues, man. And I've had people, I mean, I've had people say like, I don't think we have anybody there anymore. You know,
It's the
I'm
worst
pretty sure
kept
President
secret.
Obama ended that. Like that's, I
No,
mean,
he didn't.
well, but here's the problem too, right? The military community is shrinking rapidly. 79%, maybe it was 80% of new enlistees come from military families, which is the highest in history.
That's crazy.
Right? It's crazy. And so the people bearing this burden, the sphere of families bearing this burden is getting smaller and smaller every year, which means it's harder and harder for your average American, right? Like dealing with their first world problems or whatever to connect with this, because it just doesn't touch them. It doesn't impact them. I mean,
no, you're right.
See how it impacts them, right? It's been, you know, several $1 trillion. There's been 3 million life-changing disabilities from this conflict alone. You know, the amount of money that the Defense Department spends, despite having serious readiness issues. I mean, the reserves and National Guard have covered up to like 40% of these combat tours.
It's ridiculous.
I mean, you know, you look at where we have real adversaries, man, and this is like a thing this is a thing that I'll say when I'm talking to like your more hawkish people who are just like, no, I'm pretty sure being in some kind of war is good, all the time. And I'll be like, well, I'm like, listen, man, like we do have technically I don't want to say near peer because I know it's the buzziest of buzzwords or whatever.
Yeah, I know where you're going with it, though. You're right.
Right. So we have this like adversary out there, and right now we're putting all of our resources into Afghanistan. Like we're literally paying in blood and treasure to secure the backyard of a bunch of our adversaries who otherwise would have to pay to fix it themselves. And instead we're sitting there so they can shoot at us and take cheap dubs because we're in their backyard, right? You know, I'm talking about Iran. I'm talking about the like whatever percentage of the Pakistan government that doesn't like our military and is opposed to us. I'm talking about China, who touched Afghanistan. People don't know that or think about it. You know, right. So like we're doing all this work for them. Meanwhile, you know, what was it like 2017, 2018? You know, the Navy crashed like $70 billion worth of ships in the South China Sea, probably the most important sea lane we've got, because they couldn't find enough, you know, like Joes or boots or whatever to like you know, like stand on the deck and watch for ships. Like the Defense Department has some serious priority issues that this conflict, and you know, we use the hashtag ending endless wars, which is, you know, it's rhetorical, but it's a distraction. And so you have all these services and agencies competing over the resources that this conflict provides them, and they ignore these things that they should be doing.
How did we get to that? That's my thing though, man. Like I thought we'd learned this fucking thing from Vietnam and we didn't. But how did we get back to a point where it's like no one wants to just end something and focus on something that's real? Like I don't, you know, because before you go, but so to go back to my tour 2013, 2014, where we overlapped, we went into Operation Drumbeat, which was all about getting rolling stock. For those that don't know, I've said this multiple times on this show, but rolling stock is anything with fucking wheels on it out of Afghanistan. Like we're leaving, we're going home. That was 8 years ago.
So, okay, man, just one more pivot, one more surge, more.
That's what I don't. That's why I'm wondering.
Forces.
Yeah. So, because you're just probably one organization of multiple, I'm assuming that's doing, or at least trying to do something similar. But
we're the only people who are taking I think we're the only organization taking a nuanced approach to this, right? Like most of the anti-war movement is anti-military and anti-war. And so we're really the only people taking like a truly nonpartisan, not anti-war, not anti-military, we try to take these nuanced perspectives on this thing. And I think it's why we've been successful. But again, you know, it's a volunteer-led organization. It requires people to show up and participate, or at least phone in and help out. And I think I don't know, man, whether it's between COVID or political exhaustion, right? Because these have been some pretty some pretty high strung years. Whether necessary or unnecessary. Last I don't know, man, 15 years. I mean, I remember like feeling like the political hysteria was essentially starting in like 2003, and I just feel like it's been running people emotionally and psychologically into the ground because they're like still on this outrage train.
Well, I mean, what's fueled the outrage train, right? The cable news and social media as it's grown.
Yeah, right.
Grown
well,
and grown.
it's
So
it's an industry, right? I mean, look at people talk about record-breaking political spending. What is political spending predominantly spent on?
Advertising.
Where?
Networks and social media. Imagine that. Yeah.
Imagine that.
Yeah.
Can't imagine why those guys would want to light political fires on literally every topic.
Yeah, I mean,
subject ever.
we always had CNN, but most people probably don't realize that Fox and MSNBC were started the exact same year in I believe it was 1997. You know what I mean? So
yeah,
that's kind of where we're at, man. But I still don't understand why not more people just don't come together and realize that, hey, there is this stuff still going on in Afghanistan.
Right.
We still have a continuing presence in fucking Iraq, whether people realize that or not. That's still happening. Right. And then all the other, like Syria was supposed to be it's going to take a few months. It's going on.
Syria, Yemen.
You said 41 countries fall under this authorization for use of military force. Like that's
so. I mean, I think there's a reticence, and I don't know if it's like the footballization of politics, but the number one thing that nobody who cares about politics will do, is challenge their own political folks, right? But people don't realize like whatever your personal political persuasion is, man,
right? You
attacking the other team is meaningless, essentially, right? It literally does nothing. It's fun. It's fun to roast them.
Yeah.
Point out when they're dumb, when they got their foot in their mouth, right? But it does nothing.
Right.
You putting pressure on your team has leads to meaningful change because they depend on you to stay there. And that's the only thing they care about, staying there. And so what we try to do, like I got guys who volunteer for me who are like Bernie bros. I got guys who are like in the cruise mafia and and
that's how it should be.
But I direct them to put pressure on their own people because that's where change comes from. But that's an alien concept for a lot of people. They don't.
It shouldn't be. Well, I've been saying this shit for fucking years now, and I'm like, look, man, we got 340 million people in this country. You can't just put everybody on one side of the room and say, hey, this is it. We need more than just Republicans and Democrats in this country. We just do. We need more viable parties. We need people to stop pretending they're like, I go back to 2016. Bernie Sanders is not a fucking socialist, or he's not a Democrat. Trump's not a Republican, but they're forced to run for that, right? That's where they're forced to put
America clearly wanted a third party president, bro.
Right. And they got it. And they didn't like the way the dude conducted himself in public, which I totally understand as well. But you know what? At the end of the day, you need to have alternatives to the status quo that you've described. Because if you're going to have people who legitimately buy into an issue, ending all these endless wars, then you need to give them some sort of leadership. It can't just be I respect totally exactly what you're doing as the group, but someone needs to take that and run with it and start trying to they have to affect change at the actual legislative level. They've got to get into Congress. They've got to,
But the problem with Congress though is that because Congress is so broken, because so much power has been consolidated in the majority leadership, that essentially, if you're not the majority leader of the upper or lower house, you essentially have zero power to affect legislative change, right?
Or you have to be outlandish. You have to develop a name. Look what AOC's. We don't have to like AOC's politics, but she's created power for herself. She's taken it from her party and created it for
Sure,
herself.
but she still voted for Nancy Pelosi, and
No,
she
I
was
got
like,
that. I'm
she
just
could have
saying,
been the vote
but
that
how does
derailed
someone
her.
who
Yeah.
just enters into Congress create power for themselves, right? They have to do something like her. It's been done, but
I
most
agree
people
we
I
need,
think
like, new
go to
people.
Congress and they're perfectly content on being there and
Right.
not actually doing anything.
Yeah, well, it's
Because
all the
think about
benefit
how
and
many
all the
members
risk.
of the Congress and Senate that you can actually name. Now, maybe you can name more because you're involved in this, but think
Right.
most people just know the talking heads, right? The
Yep.
5 to 10 from each house who want to be known. And there's all those people behind the scenes who are just happy to show up and do their vote. And maybe some of them are great
backbenchers,
people.
right?
Maybe some of them are great people, great legislators, but they're not doing anything as you described when 85% have been voted out. All right, well, what the fuck are you 85% doing? Why are you allowing this to continue?
Well, they're gone. So that's the thing, is that they're gone. And so now, man, it's been disheartening in I guess on the left, right? Because we saw this massive coalition of people, who attacked former President Bush over Iraq,
Mhm.
you know, fall silent for 8 years, right?
Yeah.
About the expansion of these conflicts, and then they became, during the former president, like, they were vocal about, like, so the House Democrats took a vote that was, I think, unsuccessful. Well, it failed in the Senate, but they took a vote to end the 2001 AUMF. But they also, like, knew it was going to fail because Republicans had the Senate. And I just think there's a lot of that stuff that's performative. I
Totally.
personally think there's a guy I'm really excited about, Pete Meyer in Michigan. He's a Iraq Afghan vet, I think.
Joe Kent in Washington State District 3 getting ready to run. Just so you know, for those.
I'm a big Joe Kent fan. Obviously, he worked with our network to highlight some of these issues. He's been a great spokesman for this kind of thing. But a lot of the GWAT vets who rolled into Congress have been disappointing, man. And I'm hoping that like, guys our age, who start to go in, not because it's the next logical career after after an officer, after you hit officer retirement, right? Because it's not the next step, but like guys who legitimately want to see change and who care more about the outcomes of this country and the Constitution, right, than any particular party.
Well, they gotta just stick to that. They can't try to be all things to all people, man. Just fucking go in. If everyone hates the fact, oh, I'm not a single issue voter. No one cares. If you're gonna go to Congress,
right?
If that's what you're gonna go to Congress for, then just dedicate your time to that. And if after 2 years it didn't work and someone votes you out, hey, okay. You're not supposed to go there hoping that you're going to be the next Nancy Pelosi or the Joe Biden.
Right, dude,
whoever
it was never supposed to be a career.
It's not supposed to be your
intermission.
Career. Right. And that's why I would love term limits to be a thing. And I respect any politician from whatever side who introduces it. I know it's always going to fail, but stick with it because it should be term limits. It should not be your fucking job, man. It's supposed to look how the state legislature is treated. You are paid like it's a part-time job, if that. Like that's what it should be.
Ours is full-time, but you're correct.
Right. But I mean, so I'm just saying, like, I just come from the state of Florida. If you are a state legislator, look, you need to find something else because that's not going to pay the bills as a state legislator.
I love that.
Right? So I'm just saying it should have never been incentivized to where people want to constantly stay there.
Right.
Do your time, man. If the president has term limits, I don't understand how the rest don't. I mean, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
2 terms for senators, 4 terms for Congress members. I'm cool with that. 12 years. Look, we don't need you there that much longer or even that long probably. And everyone's always like, well, what about continuity? What if you have a good member? Great. Dude, what about the next guy?
If only we had this near perfectly written document that was built after a rigorous study of every successful and failed government in history, written by a bunch of guys who are like, we're going to invent a government that's designed to protect people. It's designed to empower people and limit its own power. Like,
what was
we
that?
Could just follow that.
Was that the
I don't
Magna
know where you find
Carta?
something like that though.
Was it Magna Carta?
Yeah, right. Yeah. It's Rosetta Stone, right? I don't know.
Rosetta. Yeah. Oh shit. The U.S. Constitution. Oh, cool.
Dude, which I just love, man. I think that's like, so the big thing with our organization, right? Like, and one of the things I love about it, man, is that I'm empowered to work with, it's that Frederick Douglass, work with anyone to do good, no one to do bad.
Mm.
We're not like party slaves. So like, I had a brief run in the GOP when I was like getting engaged in some of this policy stuff. And I quickly found that, like, political parties exist to protect incumbency only. And I was like, but wait a minute, shouldn't we be bullying our politicians? And they're like, no, that's awful. And I'm like,
Yeah.
but we're
No,
the only
I
people
like
that they listen
I like
to.
your approach.
Dude, I'm like, we're the only people they listen to. Why wouldn't we bully these people? Like, they're fucked up, man. We should fix them.
Yeah.
And they're like, no, we just got to get them reelected. And I'm like, but then they're still broken out.
Yeah.
And I admittedly, I was lucky. The place ended up moving in Wisconsin, just north of Milwaukee. Dude, great state assembly rep, great state senator, an amazing congressman. So these funny stories about, man. But I'm gonna tell you another college story because it's cooler than basic training stories, I guess. I don't know.
Nothing's cooler than Firewatch stories, man. Come on.
Yeah. So yeah, I got they can't believe they wrote Vagisil on my sick call slip, bro. So I get an email and then a phone call from this like graduate student union. Mm-hmm. And I'm an undergrad kid. I'm working at the Veterans Center at the time, helping new vets, try to like figure stuff out. And they're like, hey, we heard you guys do a bunch of like lobbying and like advocacy stuff. And I was like, yeah, I guess a little bit, man. I'm like figuring it out. And they're like, all right, we're going to go protest in Madison. Do you want to come? And I was like, well, what are you protesting? And this was before I was politically engaged, right? And they're like, well, so in the Higher Education Reauthorization Act at the time, there was a proposal to tax student tuition remittance, which would essentially burn. I mean, universities have, they run a really funky game with foreign students and grad school students where they essentially don't pay them, but they give them free tuition, and they do the job of tenured professors who are not doing their job. And so, and that's a separate broken thing, right? But anyway, but taxing that is like insult to injury, right? And not only that, but the Wisconsin GI Bill is tuition remittance. And so I'm like, all right, this is going to also fuck a bunch of student vets, right? Guard and reserve folks. And I was like, oh yeah, that's a serious issue. I feel like that's in Washington D.C. Like this is a national government policy, though. Why are you guys protesting in Madison? And dude, they were like, Madison's closer. And I'm like, nobody fucking even works there who touches this. And I'm like, all right. I'm like, well, I'll tell you what. I'll try to be helpful here. I'm like still Staff Sergeant Rogers, right? I'm like, let me find you the right place to solve this problem. I'm like, tell me what senators and congressmen or women have you already reached out to? Because then maybe I could follow up with whoever's left. And they're like, dude, we haven't talked to anybody. And so I'm like, all right. So dude, I go through and I email all these Democrats, right? Because I'm like, this is their thing. This is college. This is affordability. This is access.
Yeah.
And dude, like none of these people will call me back. Like I'm getting like this, the senator's like has no position on this issue. And I'm like, how the fuck is she not even how the fuck does she have no position on this issue? That seems crazy. And I'm like, wait a minute, I just moved to this new district. I have a new congressman. And I sent this guy an email. He's like statewide renowned for just being like one of the hardest working, strange guys. He's just awesome. I love him to death. But I sent this guy an email, and like 20 minutes later, my phone rings, and he's like, "Hey, it's Congressman Grothman." And I told this story. I think I told the story on a town hall I did with him on VA stuff. And he's Congressman Grothman. He asked me to explain the issue. He's like, "All right, I'm going to get I'll get on the convergence committee, and I'll make sure to pull that language out when the bill goes to convergence to get passed." And I'm like, it can't be that easy. And I'm like, So I like send him an email follow up. I'm like, this is what we talked about. This is what you said you're gonna do. And he just sends me like a yup reply. And then he did it though. And so I reach out to these graduate students and I'm like, hey, check this out. This congressman, Grothman, he's like fixing it. That's crazy. And they're like, is that dude a Republican? And I was like, yeah, that's crazy, huh? They're like, yeah, we're gonna go protest in Madison anyway. Then they did, man. And that was also kind of my like exposure early on to this like
it's all
outrage
pom-pom.
with
It's
zero
all
forward movement.
It's all pom-poms
culture,
for
man.
whatever. Yeah, it doesn't matter.
Always mad, always screaming, but never actually like addressing these problems that often are like, you know, are correctable through like just
contact.
Dude, just fucking talk to people, man. Like have conversations,
right?
You know, like do like a tiny amount. We have the internet, bro. Do a tiny amount of research, and you can find the process place where you need to insert yourself to adjust this thing. So I try to go back to the university a lot. I'll put on like lobbying classes for their like student government, and I try to like teach people how to problem solve.
That's awesome.
But yeah, it's just fascinating, and I think so many people are like addicted to that. Like, there's outrage. Like some social clout that comes from outrage, bro, on both sides of the spectrum.
No, it is both sides. Absolutely.
None of it's positive, and none of it's
productive. But that's what I've said. Like, and that it's not going to end until people start legitimately creating alternatives. I bring this up all the time.
Or just do the work. Get together and do the work.
No one wants to do work, bro. That's too hard. Look, but I don't know if you took these classes because you did poli-sci as well. But did you ever do like politics of the European Union or anything like that along those lines?
Oh yeah, like comparative government. Oh yeah.
Well, so like look at the parliament in the UK. Like they literally have, or even France is another great example. Every 2 years, they've got parties who come up with something, create a name, a platform, and run. Sometimes they get elected, sometimes they don't. What they do,
France also never gets anything done, dude. They just like turn and burn their constitution every like.
I know, but look at Le Pen.
Years.
I remember reading about Marie Le Pen, and I was like, her dad, I think, was a super far right wing dude, either before her, and then she kind of carried on his party, and it was just like, yeah, this party's never going to go anywhere. And now, because they stick with it or they've rebranded, and it's just an example of come up with good ideas, and then you got to figure out how to appeal to people, right? Whether it's changing the name, whatever it is, but you give people options and alternatives. Eventually, if you stick around or you stick to it, it'll garner attention. But we don't do any of that in this country. We don't take any of our alternative parties seriously. You know, everyone will every now and then, oh yeah, vote for Jurgensen or whatever, the fucking libertarian. Like, but no one takes those people serious.
I saw 2 signs.
Yeah. Well, hey, look, I ain't gonna lie. My first political presidential election I could vote for in 2000. You know who I voted for? This was Bush Gore, 2000. And I was a Florida voter. I voted for Ralph Nader. What up? Yeah.
Dude,
so that's where I was.
2016 was the first time I voted, bro.
Really? Damn.
Dude, I know it sounds great. It seems crazy, but like,
I mean, that was the first election I voted for a Republican. So there's that.
Yeah, I just didn't
actually no.
I didn't like it, dude. And again, like I said, the political guys I met while I was in, especially in the intel community, dude, they were just like the most awful people who never did anything. And I just like, so I just avoided. I didn't want anything to do with it. Yeah. And I like just kind of told myself like I'm going to focus on like my job, my duty. It's like selfless service, right? And if I want to participate, I'll get out and go fucking participate. So yeah, so I'm doing, I guess.
All right.
Yeah.
Where are you at? Give me like a 1 minute synopsis of kind of like how are you feeling with the new transition to a new president? Like, are you feeling like anything's gonna change? Are we gonna finally reel this stuff in? Are you optimistic, pessimistic? Where is your organization at with the new administration at this point?
I mean, we are always optimistic.
Do you worry about the administration, or do you worry more about the local politician or the?
No, I mean, this is not a local politician issue, right? I mean, the signals that are coming out even today, right, of the administration indicate that they do not plan to adhere to the terms of the Doha Agreement, which was the peace/withdrawal treaty signed by some of the senior Taliban guys, the government, Afghanistan government, and the U.S. government. Essentially, I think the withdrawal date is like May 1st. And I think today, I think it was like a Vox piece, which is like a grain of salt kind of thing. But I mean, the fact of the matter is the Biden administration has not talked about Afghanistan or the Doha Agreement in any of its foreign policy, military briefings. Like, they just haven't really been talking about it. That's not, I don't think that's a good sign. I would encourage people, to apply pressure, because that's the only thing that's going to change these people's minds, right? Like ignoring it is why we are at the place that we are still. I'm encouraging people to reach out to their party folks. So if you're a Democrat, dude, reach out to your Democrats. If you're a Republican, reach out to your Republicans. All of these people need convincing, because none of these people are particularly interested in radical change, right? But at the end of the day, dude, we just passed our first year in 20 years of warfare with 0 American casualties, right?
Does that help
that's
or hurt?
So, you know what, man, like, to me, I'm like, well, this is personally, I think, as a guy, and you've been there at the same time, we have watched Afghan militia, Taliban militia peace agreements fall apart over and over again. This is the first time that they came to the table in good faith, and that they have worked. I mean, it's a factionalized force, right? So they have put in a lot of work to keep their various factions from attacking Americans in their country. And if we are the ones who renege on that agreement, the bloodshed that follows is going to affect us, right? It's U.S. service members are going to die, and they're never going to come back to the table again. I mean, it took 17 years to get them to come to the table in good faith. When you're at the point where the Taliban is like, this can't go on anymore, we can't be the ones who renege on this, man. We can't be the ones that are at fault, you know, and then like, oh, okay, well, the country's exploded in violence and a bunch of Americans have been killed or injured. So one more surge, one more pivot, one more paradigm shift, and we'll be there forever. And now, you know, you were talking about kids coming in who were born well after all this.
It's all, yeah.
The greatest danger here is that the entire generation of folks entering the U.S. military, this is normal. This has been their entire life. They have never known anything but perpetual war. Or
they have no idea what's going on.
Dude, but it doesn't matter, because it's been forever. It's dogma, right?
Yeah.
And if we don't handle this, like, eventually it's going to be us, and it's going to be people our age. It's going to be 3 generations of people who have lived through perpetual war, because we've always been there. That's why we're there, because we've always been there.
Yeah, and it's also why I hate these stupid little fluff pieces in pick a branch times on, like, dad and sons or dad and daughter serve together, and like, that's not a fucking thing to celebrate. That's stupid. Yeah. And because I have a daughter who's coming up, you know, 15 now. Is she 15? I think she's 15. Yeah. Yeah, she's fucking 15. 15, right? And I already know that it is an option. I don't think she'll end up in the military, but if she does, like, how dumb would it be for my daughter to go to Afghanistan? And it's highly possible, because that's only 3-4 years from now. Very possible, right? I would think it, and you know, like I said, these pick a branch times will write a story about, oh, look, great. That's not great. That's stupid. That's dumb.
I mean, do you know the people that I meet that are the most opposed to the withdrawal? It's like 2 types of people, man. Is currently commissioned officers,
because they want to get their little patch.
Promote ahead of peers, big baby.
Yeah, man. Yeah, and let me hop on a transport plane so I can spend 72 hours in country.
Right.
A combat
infantry guys who
combat
have not,
patch, bro. What up?
and infantry guys who have not deployed, which like
So the
I
entire Marine
understand.
Corps.
You understand?
Got him.
Guys without
Woo!
cars. Whatever.
Got that in
Guys
there.
without cars.
Got
Without
him.
cars. Yeah. I mean, but like, and you know how to, like, and I get. I mean, I'm an ultra pogue, but like I get it, right? Like that was the reason that I joined, was to go fight. And I, you know, the thing I try to articulate to these folks is like, war is not going to go away because we decide that this one is not worth dying for anymore.
Yep. That's
war is always going to be there. There's always going to be disasters and conflicts and coups and nonsense all around that where everybody says, please, America, come help. Right.
No. It's the only country on speed dial. Remember that.
Right. Exactly.
For now.
Those conflicts are going to come. You'll get your car or your cab or your CIB or your whatever the Air Force has. You're going to get those things, man. Air medal? I don't know, dude. I
don't know. They should have just stayed a part of the Army. Whatever.
Yeah, make the Air Force the Army Air Corps again. Was not.
There's a better cause. You know what? You have a better chance of maybe getting that than ending the endless wars. Maybe that should. Maybe you need to pivot causes.
Space Force. We're pivoting to space now. So like,
oh
maybe space will be expensive enough.
That's another thing. Do you remember? So you did poli-sci. Did you ever do a class on space law? No. So no, I did. This was a legit class. It was called space law.
But I did watch Moonraker.
Oh, cool. So you're basically there. But no, like there was a treaty I remember reading about called UNUSA or UNOSA or something. It's basically, it states like what countries can do on the moon, for example, and in space. And if you remember, like 2012, when Newt Gingrich was running for president, he was like, I'm gonna build a base on the moon. And I was just remember, you can't do that. Like it says specifically, you can't do anything in space, essentially. Like no country.
But what's somebody going to do unless they have a moon fob, bro?
Yeah, no country can do any sort of military operations in space, essentially. And then that's why, like when the Space Force came about, I was like, how do we do that? Whatever. But anyway, yeah. Get your Space Force ASUs.
We have a long way to go, man. And I think like we can also highlight that there are a lot of serious issues that the DoD needs to address that this forever conflict essentially gives them an out on, right? Like we are struggling to address suicides. We're struggling to address toxic commands. We're struggling to address military sexual trauma, right? Like, these are all things that we keep having stand downs on. And for anyone who doesn't know anything about the military, safety stand down is what commanders do when they have no idea or no interest in solving a problem. It's pressing the pause button because your mom is screaming at you from the other room. And you're like, I'm just going to leave The Legend of Zelda on pause for a minute. I'm going to go have a conversation about how I'm very bad. I'm a terrible person and I'm going to get better. And then you go back to playing Zelda because that's it. There's no other solution, man. That's like, I mean, these safety stand downs, it's like every time there's something horrific that happens, right? It's like, we're going to have a safety stand down, dude. And I'm a guy who had, like I had female troops pretty much the whole time I was in. And there's so much stuff that has to be fixed with, from unit levels all the way up to defense procurement spending. My man Ike Eisenhower, big Ike,
last 5-star in charge,
right? The business
last 5-star, I believe, right?
Yeah. He talked about how he really, like, that guy probably in a couple of speeches covered all the things that CVA like works on, right? A military that's driven by industries and conflicts, in a country that depends on our ability to spend money to project force, these things can't continue forever because they undermine our national security in a huge way. At the end of the day, dude, if we have a brush with somebody, with like a military like China, right? If there's some sort of thing, like, I want extremely well-trained, well-rested, well-equipped Navy SEALs doing UDT to sink a bunch of boats and to do their jam, right? Like, like who I don't want to have to deal with that? A bunch of like Navy SEALs on their 15th combat tour, doing like the Green Beret light thing on their sixth marriage, and like with like addiction problems and all these TBIs and all this stuff, man. We are exhausting our most irreplaceable resource, which is our exceptional people. Like Raytheon can't replace that shit, man.
Exactly. Yeah. Human capital.
They can't. And
it's not infinite. It's finite.
No. And the soft community itself, is particularly in the last 10 years has bared the brunt of a lot of these, like,
I mean, we go back to like Joe Kent, right? Retired. 11 deployments.
11 tours.
In his 20 years.
You have two guys. I think they were both Ranger bat dudes. You got two guys who were killed with 14 combat tours, man.
Yeah, I mean, I went to drill sergeant school with 4 Rangers who all served together multiple times, and I remember one of them, this dude, he had done 7 deployments to Afghanistan and Iraq, and I remember asking him, like, "Why'd you get out and come do this shit?" He's like, "Yo, bro, your time's up eventually." You know what I mean? Like, he's like, and it's true. We go back to Fight Club. On a long enough timeline, everyone's survivability rate was reduced to 0. All right.
Yeah, man.
That's true. No, you're right, Sam. And I
appreciate dude, and that's, I always tell, it's so weird. Cause like, I got 3 tours. Right. Yeah. And I feel like a piece because I know dudes with 5, 6, 9.
It's fucking crazy, man. It's crazy. And they're fine. But then there's those that aren't, but you wonder why. Well,
sure.
You spent half of your military career deployed. It wasn't supposed to be that way. Nope. Like as you've said multiple times, I think tonight, like, war's supposed to be, it's not your anti-war. War's supposed to be the last possible outcome, right? Or the last possible solution is supposed to be, let's go to war.
And when you have to go, you go all out. Yeah. You arrive violently. You go to win. You accomplish the motherfucking mission. And you know what the thing is, man, our guys and gals on the ground accomplished everything outlined in the 2001 AUMF really in the first 6 months. Now, you stretch that as, even if we call clacking bin Laden a stretch goal, right? Like, we're like, yeah, but it doesn't really count until they torpedoed that dude. By 12, or was it 12 they killed him?
I think it was 11 or 12.
11, right? Yeah. So then that should have been it.
Should have been.
Right? That should have been the victory dance, the pack it up, ladies and gentlemen, we got them.
Let's go. Let's wrap it up, B.
Let's go.
Yo, wrap that shit up, B. But
right. So anyway. Hey, listen, anybody who's still hung in this long,
they better have.
They better have. Check out www.cv4a.org. Dude, sign our petition. Our petition system, man, we generate 4 rounds on target for every signee, man. We're gonna send a letter or an email to your congressman or woman, both your senators and the president of the United States. We sent 700,000 letters to President Trump when it became clear that troops were not actually leaving Afghanistan. And I don't know, man, the guy fired the defense sec that was slow rolling that thing. And I mean, obviously it was too little too late at that point, but I say that to indicate that these tools work, but they require participation, much like our fantastic democracy, right? Like they require participation, dude.
Yeah.
So I would encourage everyone, man, call your reps, call your senators. If you don't have the time to do that, that's fine. Life's fucking hard and complicated, but you can sign our petition at Concerned Veterans for America. You can sign our petition.
That's all you got to do. Just sign it. That's it.
Dude, and we will do the work to get them there.
Point, click and ship, right? That's what everybody wants to do.
We'll do the work to get them there, and then we will go and talk to those people multiple times. We'll talk to them in their districts. We'll talk to them in DC, and we will press them on these things until we get some change, man. And we're an organization that's here for the long term, man. We're gonna fight this thing.
Good.
We're gonna fight this thing until we see it through. Much like VA healthcare reforms. We've accomplished things that everyone has said were impossible with these simple tools and participation. So with that, I'm optimistic, right? Because, dude, people said major VA reforms were impossible. They couldn't be done. Too many VSOs invested in the VA forking over cash for programming. the largest agency labor union of any org. Like, they're like, it's just not going to happen. And we fought that fight over almost 8 years, and we're successful. So check us out. We're in 12 different states. Please don't ask me to name them, because I'm sure I'll miss one and offend somebody. But
please name all 12. Go.
Right.
No, don't do it.
Oh, really? Name 5. But our network, our philanthropic network that we're a part of, covers like 38 states or something like that. So
awesome.
And no matter where you're at, man, it's the era of remote participation. So please reach out. I'll connect you to the nearest chapter. You can get involved in what they're working on. Anyone who's looking for a righteous fight to get on board with, we'll get you in play.
There you go. That's the right answer. That's real Sam Rogers on Twitter if you need him. Sam Rogers from Concerned Vets for America, the Milwaukee, Wisconsin chapter. He drinks new fashions with White Monster. He is a Green Bay Packers fan, but we do not hold that against him. However, in Mitch we trust. Bear down, and we'll see you next week. Thanks you, Sam, for joining us, my big man.
Thanks, brother.
Attaboy. Drink that up. Here we go. We're out of here. There will be bourbon.